I mean, there are so many moments in this film that are just like, oh God.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Steph,
And I'm Elle.
I'm Avery.
and I have Lion. And this episode is about Annihilation. Snaps for Annihilation. Please, I'm several chugs of wine deep. I did a lot between the last recording and this recording. I feel like I need it for this movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that has a lot to
Yeah.
it.
It's dense. It's a very dense movie. Symbolically it's very dense. Just like I just want to say, like, on a very basic level, this
Yeah.
movie, like the end of it, like triggers the way that the sound design was with that faceless thing with her. Oh my God, it gave me the fucking creeps.
It,
And I don't usually like that thing did look like a butthole, by the way, Steph. When I got it,
yeah,
I was like, that does look like a butthole.
yeah. I want to tell you guys that I watched this movie Stone Cold Sobeys, and
On my level.
I was putting together. I've been working on this scrapbook for my mom's birthday, so I was balls deep in that while I was watching this movie. And I texted Elle and I was like, so this movie kind of scared me. Also, this thing looks like a floating iridescent butthole.
It's like if I had fallen asleep and like my cat, I would have woke up with my cat's butt in my face, in
Yeah.
the face, yeah.
Why is it shimmery? That's the least of your concerns.
King has taught us anything. Like, creepy spectral aliens should have a glowing butthole.
Yes.
It's mandatory at this point. So I wasn't disappointed by the butthole at
Mm-mm.
all. And I was like, she's staring directly into it. Never stare directly into the butthole.
You can see it like
That's how you're
lighting up her eyes.
that's how you get shit in your eye, and that's
Yeah.
just really bad.
That's how you get pink eye Natalie Portman. That's how.
See, I just really wanted for that like fight scene she had in the lighthouse to just have like like in tune of everybody was kung fu fighting, everybody was morph suit fighting.
Yeah. So good. Really scary to me. And I was sober. Like, it was freaking me out. I think my boyfriend peeked in at one point and I was looking like this. And
Yeah.
he's like, "You ready to do groceries?" And I'm like, yeah.
I think there's something about like genetic changes and like the human mind and how it would change the perspective and what you're dealing with a human that is uniquely terrifying to me. Like, at what point as they're changing are you no longer dealing with a human being? And change is the big theme in this symbolically, because even though she comes out of it, she's still changed. And I didn't even notice it, but I actually like I watched a video that pointed out the tattoo on her arm at the end came from that other girl because she had
Yeah.
been in proximity
No,
with her.
actually, the tattoo, the Ouroboros
Hmm.
tattoo on her arm is on the arm of the soldier that gets cut open in the
Oh.
scene. So
Oh
it's on
shit.
his arm, and it shows up first as a bruise, and then it shows
Jeez.
up on her arm
Oh yeah.
after the bear.
I remember the
I
bruise,
can't.
yeah.
I can't
How
deal
did
with it.
she acquire it
Ouroboros,
from him though?
Ouroboros fucks me up ever since I watched Hemlock Grove. It just fucks me up. It really does. And this movie is just it's really a lot for me. At one point I was like, "Oh my God, is this cosmic horror? Please stop talking to me." But I have to keep watching.
Yeah, I think Dan Olson Folding Ideas said that like this film would be a really good one for like a film 101 class, and I like could not agree more because I think it does such a good job of using film language to convey its themes. while at the same time having enough wrong with it, or enough that wasn't, I don't think, done as smoothly as possible, that
Mm,
like if you are just like coming in fresh, have no idea how to analyze film or anything like that, you could pick up on it.
yeah.
And that's what I think like makes it so like effective as a storytelling device. I really like it.
I gotta tell you, I was immediately mad at both of you when I saw that it was 2 hours long, but I got over it. I got over it. It's just that usually when a movie is that fucking long, I'm angry right out the gate because I have a hard time
Yeah.
paying attention, but I didn't have a hard time because
Yeah.
there was just so much crazy happening. And
The
also
visuals.
they
Mhm.
Oh
hooked
my
me right
god.
away by saying, "Oh, hey, let me give you a little Oscar Isaac." And I said, "I'm listening."
Celebrities like Natalie Portman really are just like a whole other level, because if I were married to Oscar Isaac, I would never cheat on him. Like,
Never,
come on.
never,
You're
especially
married to Oscar Isaac.
right, especially with uh another professor that I work with. Fuck off. No. You're not
Yeah.
on the same level. And he was married. Oh, he was married too. No.
But it's like she was talking about, and this was like discussed throughout the movie, but she says something in bed with Oscar Isaac early on where she talks about um that there's something in our DNA that's like a flaw, and that's what aging is. And like there's just these things that are coded in us to just like fuck us up pretty much. And
Things.
the theme throughout is like humans fuck themselves up very well. It's kind of that Protest the Hero song that's about Sequoia Throne is what it's called. They're not the ones who came to do us harm. We are the ones who are destroying ourselves, not the aliens. The aliens are just, showing us. It's just shining a light on what
They're
we
just
do.
showing us their butthole. And we're looking
That's
directly
true. They
at
are showing us their butthole.
every everything is a choice. And there are so many choices made in this movie. And I do want to say just like stellar casting all around, but I don't buy Jane the Virgin as like a hard military lady. I don't buy it just
Hmm.
because I watched too much Jane the Virgin. But her I did I did like really struggle with Natalie Portman in this movie. Do I tell
Hmm.
them that my husband was already in there and that's why I'm here, or do I not? Because that's a huge choice. And
Hmm.
either way she went, there was gonna be some kind of repercussions. And like, so the girl who took off on her and was like, "You're a liar, and I'm gonna tie you to this chair," before a faceless bear comes and screams at us in another girl's voice, which is horrifying. It's horrifying. It's like the one of the most horrifying things
Oh
in
my
this movie.
God, too, I just realized
Hmm.
that bear and the way that it like got her voice and stuff, it's like the way trauma changes us,
Hmm.
because trauma just like because of that prism that they're in genetically, whenever they're traumatized, it's like they pick up something from around them, and
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
ugh.
Look, she's so excited.
Yeah. No, I love it because that is exactly it. Like the themes of self-destruction and change that go throughout it are just like, yes, that is
Mhm.
exactly it. I love the mimic bear so much.
No,
It's
I feel it
terrifying.
on my insides. It really, and not much scares me, but I feel like I've gotten like a newfound respect and interest in cosmic horror movies, and I made like this massive list. This was not on it, but like because not much of the like mundane things and the things that we've seen a million times scares me, but this shit gets under my skin
Yeah.
so deeply.
Yeah. I mean, I end up thinking about like radiation and like cancer and stuff like that. I think that this film was very much evoking that sort of idea about like an environment that by existing inside of it changes you in like horrible ways, or maybe not so horrible ways, depending on like how you think about it. Within the Shimmer, you have the one girl at the end, Josie, the one who becomes a plant.
I want to talk about her for a second. I thought that hers was
Absolutely.
the most beautiful. I love how First, it reminds me of this episode. I talk about Naked and Afraid all the time because I watch too much of it. But there was this episode of Naked and Afraid where one girl was like a do. I need to, get the firewood. I need meat. I need to hunt. And this other girl was like, she was doing yoga and she was like meditating and laying in the sun, and she was like, I'm just gonna photosynthesize my way into the end. And that was this girl. I was like, she's photosynthesizing, like accepting all of those flowers like growing out of her skin. And if I had to be in a horrifyingly bleak situation like this, that's the way that I would want to be absorbed into everything else. Make me a plant and let me photosynthesize.
So
It's
you want to go the route of like Daphne from the story of like Daphne and Apollo, just turn me into a tree.
I'd rather be a tree.
Well, right before that, she says the main leader wants to face it and you want to fight it, but I don't want to do either of those things. And she just surrenders to it. So it's
Hmm.
again, it's that change. It's like, are you going to let this monumentally traumatic thing change you? Are you going to face it? Are you going to fight it? Or are you just going to allow it to take you? And her choice was, I'm going to be a flower lady.
Yes. Well, because if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, like, I mean, if you let yourself think about all the possibilities of how the world could end any day or things like that, it could drive you absolutely fucking crazy. So if you tell me there's this thing and it's just growing and we have literally no way of understanding it, let alone stopping it, I can't even comprehend trying to fight it at all.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to go out like that.
Yeah.
Make me a flower lady.
It's better than getting burned up by the atom bomb, which was what I say, like,
Yeah, I don't
run
want to
towards the
burn.
bomb.
Yeah. I mean, I also thought it was interesting. I feel like there are like ways that the different characters kind of represent the stages of grief, which is I think a very like common view to like look at characters through. But I do think like Anya, the one who goes crazy, is like very much in anger and denial. And
Mhm.
then
Yes.
you have like acceptance and bargaining, and like I think that is like a fun kind of way of thinking about it too, especially like since there's such a theme of like the deterioration of mind and body. So you kind of go like when you have a relative who has like dementia or something, I feel like a lot of people go through the stages of grief while that person is still alive and living. So when they die, they have a different, like, they're in a different place in their grief journey than, the person who wasn't around them and just found out that they died and starts their grief journey. So, like, within that narrative, like the characters representing different places in their relationship to the change that has become part of them, I think is really well done.
It's such a heavy movie.
Yeah,
There's so
there's so
much
much
in
coverage.
it. And like just like on a surface level, it's beautiful.
Hmm.
It's like very visually appealing. And I think I am very critical of bad CG. And the CG is not spectacular, but it is
It is.
passable. And at least they made it pretty. I thought those like weird deer with the long horns that have flowers on them were just so gorgeous. I just could have
Yeah.
just looked at them for a while.
Yeah, but you guys, that like crocodile alligator thing,
Mm,
that
yeah.
like, ooh, because I'm like, that's just too real living in Florida. It's just too real.
Well, this did take place. I saw two videos that said it took place in the Florida Panhandle. Like that's where the original area was supposed to be. So it
It makes
was aimed at you.
Yeah, very much.
I wouldn't be surprised if something like this was to take place in Florida. Literally nothing can surprise me. I mean, my mom was sending me videos about the aliens at the mall in Miami, and I'm just like, "Yeah,
I mean, it may as well be that the butthole aliens land in Florida. Like, how much
America's
weirder
butthole.
can Florida get?
don't say that Florida will hear you. I'm still here."
Provoking the wrath of Florida.
Yeah, and Florida Man. I think he's very uniquely in touch. I actually went to the library the other day and I saw this one of the highlighted books was literally a book about a Florida man defending Florida. And I said, I'm gonna pass on putting that on in my TBR, but good for you, Florida Man.
He's an icon.
Yeah. It's all fun and games when you don't live in Florida.
True. I mean,
Very
the
true.
Pacific Northwest has its own problems, but at least it's not Florida. Sorry.
Yeah. We just have a problematic amount of hipsters. It's troubling.
I wish that was our only problem. But I can say at least DeSantis dropped out of the presidential race or is going to. So, okay, I am confused. I mean, there's a lot of confusing things, but her husband came home.
Hmm.
Was that real?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
then there
he
was the video of him exploding.
well, he obviously encountered the same thing she encountered, that duplicated him.
So it was not her husband.
I'm not sure. It's not clear on that whether it is the duplicate that made it out or him that made it out because the guy that steps in front of the camera, the second version of him looks more like he did when he left her house, visibly. But the guy that is dying is the guy that looks disheveled throughout the rest of the earlier film. So, again, we're talking about like relatively the other guy was changed too by being in the shimmer for as long as he is. So whoever came out, it doesn't matter because whoever came out was changed by being in it to begin with, whether it was the alien that was made from his DNA or his distorted ass DNA from being in the shiver, whatever came out wasn't him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever was going to come out was never going to be him, no matter who it was.
Yeah.
So,
May I say how, as fine as he is, how unsettling that video clip is of him cutting his teammate open and the writhing body worm in there, and just the blank look on his face while he's like,
Yeah.
it's terrifying.
I mean, there are so many moments in this film that are just like, oh God. Honestly, them finding the body with the lichen as it like had grown
Yeah.
out onto the wall. First of all, visually
Head.
fucking stunning, but also
Oh,
horrifying.
horrifying.
Yeah.
Horrifying. Ooh, my bones started screaming inside my skin, and I was like, whoop, that's never happened before.
I think that this movie does like an excellent job at taking like psychological damage and like putting it in like an artistic body horror way, like expressing it that way. It just like gets under your skin so effectively because the images are both beautiful and terrifying. And that's the thing is at the end she's talking to that doctor. So you changed and it's like, well, the change isn't good or bad. It just is a change. It's ambivalent. There's no judgment there. There's no morality there. It is just like bad for us as humans because obviously you don't want to get eviscerated. You like don't want to experience that. But like,
Yeah.
is it bad in the long run? I don't know. Humans are destroying the environment. Maybe that's part of why this alien or this comet, is like focused on the Earth because some life up there in space was like, fuck those guys. They're destroying their planet. Let's send something to change the environment. We don't know. We don't know what the larger framing story is for it. So
Checks out.
I mean, it might not even be like that intentional. Like
mhm.
the alien, the comet, it just represents like an event that changes you, no matter like where it came from or like what its intention was.
Yeah.
I think at one point they even make the point with the scientist talking to Lena about like, oh, it must have been terrifying in there, and she was like, yeah, but it was also really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that that is like a very good summary of like that experience too. Terrifying and also really beautiful.
Yeah, like dating women.
Or like just going through any kind of massive like emotional change, which I'm right there right now. Like this movie, like destroyed me emotionally from beginning to end, I have to say. It's not good or bad, it's just different. It's just a different way of approaching the world. It's bad for who you used to be, which is
Yeah.
who those people are on the other side of the shimmer. It's bad for the old civilization. But who's to say if it's good or bad? It's just a thing that is.
I mean, it's about like accepting of change and just like the only thing you can do is move forward.
Hmm.
And become a flower lady.
And sometimes it just
And
means
become a
the
flower
utter
lady.
annihilation of who you are.
And sometimes that's
Mhm.
okay.
Sometimes you become a big butthole energy thing because all of
Yeah.
your cells turn into sparks and then make a butthole with the other thing. Because I was like wondering if we were going in a Borg direction or something, like hive minding, and because she was talking about, oh, there's so much information, expansive mind or something, and then she says something about this is just the first stage. And that's why, like, I knew at that point, I was like, well, somebody's getting out of this with something. And I saw so many fucking stupid videos are like, oh, they're obviously gonna bang and make a baby that's even more shimmer. And it's like,
What?
is that
What?
even necessary? Like,
No. Like, not everything has to be sexy. Not
It's
everything.
the most like shallow ass reading of the film too, to be like, oh, it's about an alien reproductive system, guys. It's like,
You
for
don't even need that.
goodness sake.
I mean, they did do a little bit of sexy because they keep cutting in these scenes of like, Natalie Portman on top of that man. So I'm like, if you want a little, they did give you a little, but like reach a little, reach.
yeah. I definitely watched a few that are like, oh, the point of this is setting it up for I don't think it's gonna be a sequel. I don't I
I
think
don't
that would be a poor choice, especially because
care.
all they could do is like fumble at this point with this,
I
I
think
think, elaborating on it.
yeah, this is a great opportunity to leave the rest to imagination. Like we've seen enough otherworldly shit, especially to know that literally anything could happen. There
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a sequel. Was this based off of a
There-
book?
yeah, so it's based on a short story, but like I think at the time that the movie was being put into production, the story hadn't been published yet
Oh.
or
Oh,
something, but then it was published and apparently there was some like whitewashing accusations or whatever, but as far as I like can tell, it seems like Annihilation, the short story, and Annihilation, the movie, are very different. Like they
Mm.
have similar premises, but they don't go to the same places.
I saw the book, like when I looked up the movie, it showed the book in Google, like so that you could see it. But I was really surprised because I was like, this reads more like a video game than a book,
mhm.
honestly. It was giving video game. They should make a game out of it. I think
But
it
they
would be
have, yeah, they've done that where they've made
the Blair
uh
Witch one.
I played the Blair Witch one.
Yeah, have you? Al did too. She was telling us that the game was more cohesive in the storytelling than the actual movie.
I would absolutely play a video game based on like the Annihilation visuals. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I want to see
100%.
Please.
more animals.
Me
Yes.
too. After the bear, like I feel like
Uh,
the bear kind of marks the end of like a lot of the like environmental horror and turns to more of the psychological
mhm.
horror, which is
Mm.
great, but I love environmental horror. So
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen more of that.
I
Yeah.
definitely wanted more. I'll trade the glowing butthole for more animals. I will.
The glowing butthole was some bad CGI, I will give it that, but
Woo!
And I mean, shout out to Ventress. We love a queen that falls apart into a million pieces.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that was actually very cool. But at the same time, I was like, God, I never want that to happen to me. I don't know what that feels like, but it seems like it feels awful.
Couldn't feel good. I mean,
She was certainly screaming, so I don't think
mm.
she was loving it.
I politely decline. I want to be a
Which
flower lady.
right before she said that too, she's like, it's gonna change us body and soul or something like that. And then she opens her mouth and she starts like puking out those sparks, and then her body starts disintegrating. It's like, oh
But
God.
also, her bones were literally flopping around like they were made of jelly. And
Ugh. And there was a lot of times where I was like watching it and I'm like, I am not getting what it's trying to tell me. I know it's trying to be smart here, but I
yeah,
am not a smart guy, so you gotta spell it out for me. Come
I'm a
on.
smart guy sometimes, but like I wasn't in the headspace for smart,
I'm a
smart.
silly bitch. I'm not smart.
I didn't take my vitamins last night. I would watch it again because I'm like, I know that there's,
Mhm.
I was doing something too. So, like, I know there's pieces I could have looked at.
Yeah, I watched this movie first with some of my friends, and I after watching this movie I was like I need to watch this again and like take notes. So I actually have like 4 pages of notes on the movie as I was like watching it again in preparation for this episode.
Aw.
Yeah,
I
I could watch it again.
I mean, that was also like 4 pages with my like not great hand, so like it wasn't super well detailed, but like I just like like I took a film studies course when I was in undergrad and it permanently ruined my brain chemistry. So every so often I need to do the film studies analysis of things and talk about like whether the sound effects were like effective in the diegetic or non-diegetic like soundscapes created and bullshit like that, and it's a problem.
Well,
I
I
don't
mean,
know what any of that means.
me either, but we've had a podcast for 3 years and that's ruined our brain chemistry, but in trash ways. So
Yeah, at least it made you smart. I think you just get stupider every time.
why bad? Why
This
bad?
isn't smart. This is just a different kind of brain rot. I'm trying to figure out like fun things to say, and you guys are over here like this is like so interesting, and let me talk about how interesting it is. And I'm like, okay, but did you notice that there was a real lack of looping sound that could have really like impacted the theme of refraction if they had actually like continued on with that?
And
Come
I'm
on,
over here like,
guys.
sorry, I was really distracted by that bear having half a fucking face and screaming in a lady voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was awful.
I love a bear that just screams help me into the faces of her like surviving friends. Like
It was literally after that that I texted Elle and said, I'm scared.
I didn't get really unnerved until that scene with the doppelganger. That again, I always go back to like what viscerally scared me as a child was Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that was close enough to that. And with that sound design with the like EDM drum thing, I don't know what the fuck it was, like a tuba noise or something. It was unsettling. I was just like, get me out of this scene. Like, do something else. Finish the scene up because I can't sit here and watch this anymore.
I was just imagining another me that's not fully formed being stuck to my skin and I can't peel it off, and I would literally pass away.
Hmm.
Elle just pass away. She's
I
so
would have
shocked.
died.
Yeah, be like, like that's it. I have ceased to exist. This is what took me out. It's stuck. It's stuck to my skin.
And the way it like crushes her and like crushes the air out of her lungs, like you're being attacked by yourself. And it's like mimicking you and trying to figure out how to behave like you. And what it does is pin you to the door and crush the air out of your lungs, which is
I'm
again
getting itchy thinking about
and
genetically
also the
encoded.
harder she pushes against the door, the harder it pushes against her.
it. Yeah,
So it's her own momentum holding her there and choking her.
Ah,
I'm so itchy.
just like the symbolism is so good in this. It's just like it does such a good job, but also I don't know, it just doesn't quite. There were several moments in it where I was just like, what the fuck? I'm gonna need to have somebody explain to me what happened here because I don't even know what happened.
I don't even need the explanation. That was a thing. That was a thing that freaked me out. That was it.
Yeah. I think Ventress especially like serves as to kind of state the theme out loud in a like way that is kind of unnecessary. I think that they could have let Ventress talk a lot less. But
Yeah.
she like is there to explain it. So I like, in on the one hand that's very like helpful.
For the dummies. I thought of something else too. Uh, who's the other older lady that was on there that got killed by the bear? What was her name again? Do you remember?
Shepherd.
Well, Shepherd, she got she talked about like how her daughter died and how it was like two deaths because it was who she
Yeah,
used to be. It was just
yeah,
like again like hitting it right on that nose and kind of like when her husband died, she ceased to be who she used to be. Even though who she used to be was kind of a greasy bitch because she was cheating on him, right? But then she became devoted to figuring out what the fuck happened to him. So it's like that's what happened to all of them in a way.
I also think it's interesting that Josie, who was like the one who participated in like self harm and that type of stuff, was also the one who got the most like freaked out when they got to the soldiers.
yeah.
Um, and also like was the one who picked up on what was happening the fastest. Which I think is like really interesting. It's that balance between like desire for survival and self-preservation and self-destruction and like dealing with the pain of existence and living.
Well, like also somebody who has those issues and stuff would be a lot more introspective, a lot more tuned into their intuition, and would be exactly the type of person that would unravel that shit quicker because they are more tuned into exactly how they're feeling inside, which in this one, whatever is outside is reflecting inside and vice versa, as above, so below. So that is interesting that that is the character. That's true. Like that picked up on it.
You can find this podcast on the interweb at ghostinmagazine.site or on Twitter at GITM Podcasts. You can find me on Twitter at WitchX Pudding.
You can find me at Nocturnical.
And I'm Taglio Dice on Instagram.
Okay, bye.